Welcome back to our special edition of Rappahannock Issues. I'm Tom Cohen. Joining me is David Kerr, our co-host. We have today a debate with the three candidates for the Rockhill Board of Supervisors in Stafford County. And so let's get back to the questions. So over to you, David.
Thank you, Tom. Our candidates have been doing a really good job with their questions, and we thank you. What I'd like to ask you about is something you all mentioned, and that was the lost money on the part of the school board. Roughly $8 million, I believe. It's one thing to say, can't find it. How would you make sure that doesn't happen again? And I'd like to start with Bob.
Well, going door to door in this campaign, I'm almost up to 2,000 homes now, so I've lost weight, and I needed the exercise. But everybody has requested that be audited, that it's got to be audited so everybody, the public, understands what happened, and it's out in the clear. This is, like Paul has said before, it's happened twice. So that's why I can't explain it because I don't have the details of what happened. But I believe that it should be audited by an independent auditor.
Thank you, Bob. Wendy?
Well, I can explain what happened because 10 years ago when I found out that Stafford County Public Schools was utilizing Lotus 123 and Word to put together their budget, I raised the red flag. And I continue to raise the red flag with our leaders over and over again about the antiquated financial systems. In addition to it, the other thing that they weren't doing was they weren't comparing their budgeted amounts to their actual amounts. This is Business 101, folks. And what you need to do is on a monthly basis, you have your budgeted amount, you have your actual amount, and you have your variance. And then throughout the year, you have your year-to-date columns. And that's how you know whether or not you're going to have unspent funds at the end of the year. Neither boards were doing that, and that is how that money got lost. That is how it was a surprise. In addition to that, they had antiquated financial controls, and so there was one person who was allowed to move money at will from one budget line item to another budget line item without the approval of the school board. And the Board of Supervisors tried to add categorical funding in order to mitigate those issues, but that led to a huge outcry by the community. But it is because of lack of modern financial controls, a lack of a modern budgeting system, and reviewing on a monthly or quarterly basis your actual expenses versus your budgeting, that this has led to the $8.3 million in unspent funds. But this isn't the first time. They found $3.2 million back in February in accounts that were no longer being utilized. They were just sitting there. And in addition to that, 5 years ago, they found another $5 million. But these boards, and maybe it's lack of business experience that they are bringing to the table, which I do bring to the table, but that is why we have $8.3 million in unspent funds, while at the same time laying off 55 teachers under the guise of not enough money.
Thank you, Wendy. Paul?
Well, professionally, I'm the technical lead of the Financial Management Information Systems in my full-time job. I am not only a computer scientist, I really know how to run the numbers, and I'm an expert in spreadsheets and those aspects. What's really important for the citizens to know is that we are ranked 79th out of 132 Virginia school districts because of these mistakes. These mistakes of the past are done by 20th century leaders who were once upon a time the future. It's time for new leadership. It's time for new analytics. Analytics is being used to figure out cancer treatments in New York City. If it can do those type of things, that's changing from day to day. Sure as heck can take care of things on a quarterly basis. And the reason we do quarterly things is there's always 13 weeks in every quarter. It's a prime number. It's just one of the neat mathematical checks and balances that's necessary for any type of budget. Not only is my own financial budget in order, I would make sure that my counterpart, I'd work with them and collaborate so we can make sure that this doesn't happen again to our school system.
Thank you, Paul. Those are all excellent answers. Keeping on the theme of schools, and this first person being asked here is Wendy, our pupil-teacher ratios have been expanding dramatically. I've heard some horror stories from several different schools. how would you address that?
Well, first and foremost, we need to make sure that we're spending the money that we take from our tax-paying citizens. And if they were able to utilize that money, i.e. know that it was there, they would have had adequate teachers in order to bring down that student-to-teacher ratio. I have 2 kids in Stafford County Public Schools. So, and once again, I have a vested interest in making sure that we have a reasonable teacher-student ratio, because what has also been happening as we've expanded the number of students that these teachers are responsible for is we're starting to see more and more behavior problems, especially in the middle schools, which is where one of my kids just left and is now in the high schools. And it's an unfortunate situation, but we need to, first and foremost, make sure we're spending the money adequately that we take from our citizens of Stafford County, and then make sure we have adequate funding so we can keep our schools great.
Bob?
Well, David, you know as well as I do that to bring the tax burden down in the county, that we have to have a outstanding school system. So I have believed in the schools since I've been elected, and the morale of the teachers today is the lowest I've seen in many, many a year. And that $8 million, I'm not privy to how they did it. That's why I want an audit to make sure that it's done right. But like Wendy said, if it was there, they could have been used for the VRS help. They had to pay their own fees, and we could have, like, I don't know if it's 55 or 35 or 85, but they needed more teachers and a better, handle on it. What I'm concerned about now is we don't have any land in the comp plan for proper school expansion. Our CIP is not even geared to add another school or 2, and we're coming to a critical point that we're going to have space. So what I'm believing in is that we got to get on top of the school thing, because we can't bring in business if we don't have the best school system in America, and we can't rate in the top 10 wealthiest county in America without taking care of the schools.
Thank you very much. Paul, I'm sorry I got out of order there a little bit. I was going right to left and then all of a sudden reverse myself. Sorry.
It's reverse Polish notation. Okay, I've been a very active participant in the school board's meetings. I have probably given more 3-minute speeches than any citizen in Stafford County over the last 20 years. If I had a platform, it would be education, education, education. You heard my own personal background. It's all based off of people who have helped me grow, and I want to help kids grow. I want to make sure they have the right infrastructure. I have followed the budget. I have followed the numbers. Someone's doing a really good job with the numbers. They're really showing that we're at what's called a steady state. My kids are gone, but we live in a very unique environment where the demographics change. And one of the metrics that's never calculated is who starts in elementary school and who finishes in high school. And my youngest son was one of the original wolves at the Winding Creek Elementary School. And he's the one who kind of gave me the push and said, you got to bring out these strengths about education. And I have the analytical ability, both mathematically from an operations research standpoint. And I really want to see those numbers, because one of the questions that was brought up at one of our interviews was, why has appropriations gone down 69 to 54%? And I answered it, I think it's the wrong number, because we lost at least 14.3 million. And I also just learned about another 3 million. Thank you.
Well, keeping on the theme of schools, one of the big problems has been for years how well the Board of Supervisors gets along with the school board, sharing of information and the development of the budget. This is a challenge, and sometimes it gets very personal. Bob, starting with you and going from right to left here.
Saying is that on both sides of the aisle, in Route 1, we've got to get along, because if the child is the number one issue, and we want to educate the child the best education you can give them, then we got to get along, and we got to keep that priority. The other thing that doesn't seem to come up on the horizon much, David, is shared expenses, shared services. You know, can we share ball fields? Can we share janitorial? Can we share different contracts in the county to get more efficiency? We never see that come up much. But there's a lot of savings that could be done if we did things more efficient. I think by having the both boards work together, that would do it. When I was an elected official, I had 3 different school board members, and we met every 2 weeks. We had a good relationship, and I want to go on record is that I was the last board member that ever fully funded the school. So if you go back and check my record, I always funded. So I'll close on that.
Wendy?
Relationships are important. We are one Stafford County and we're one team, one fight, and we need to approach it that way. And although we may serve different priorities or have multiple priorities, we still need to focus on education, because education is what's going to help with us, our economic development. It's what's going to make our property values incredible. And our teachers are an important component of Stafford County. They are not just our educators, but they are our citizens, they're our community members, and we need to support education. And how we do that is with a healthy working relationship with our school board. Over the last several years, I have seen it devolve, although recently it has gotten significantly better. I have a great relationship with many of the members of the Board of Supervisors, many members of the school board, my apologies, and several of them even endorsed me during the primary campaign. And so I'm looking forward to working with the school board. I'm also looking forward to working with the other members of the Board of Supervisors. I think I bring a different skill set to both boards, and I think we could utilize that to make Stafford County Public Schools better and overall Stafford County better.
Thank you, Wendy. Paul?
Well, we have 30 schools in Stafford County, 5 high schools, 8 middle schools, and 17 elementary schools. And on the CIP, we do have Moncure, because the one on 610 is going away. It's known as number 18 of the elementary schools. I would become a unifying force because I'm such an advocate for education. I know teachers are leaders. They are definitely leaders. And they are, the only time they really get respect, it seems, is in their own individual classrooms. They're overlooked on what they really bring. I would be honored to serve the people and to strive to impact their lives way beyond my tenure. Education's not just about the children, it's about the families. Redistricting tactics that have been used are highly subjective. We need to be much more objective. The county as a whole in 2011 went through a redistricting process. And I'll leave the citizens with this thought. If you have a high school student, we have 5 high schools in the county. We have 7 school board members. Who is your school?
Thank you, Paul. And I'm going to give you the shot at the next question to start off. Warmed up there. The landfill is a big issue in the county right now. The financing of the landfill needs to be expanded. There's not enough money to do that. What do you see as the future of the landfill, and how do you see financing it?
I was not actively involved in it, but Bill Johnson, I know, is in the Rockhill district. He has done a whole bunch of work on the landfill. Matter of fact, he was strongly opposed against the incinerator aspects and the pollution aspects. And I fully support experts like that. I believe that anyone who's elected has got to build relationships and create networking with other subject matter experts. I do not believe that the county staff has the expertise in this arena. This is one of the times I do favor getting outside consulting, using best practices that are out, not just in Virginia, but throughout the country, who are facing these same type of aspects that is one of the key 21st century aspects. People who know me personally, I'm a think green person. My campaign signs will probably be out there at the very last moment, not in your way of your driving obstructions. And I'll just leave it that we need more Bill Johnsons in this county to get involved and coordinate these efforts.
Wendy?
You make me second every time.
I'm sorry. I have a last name of Kerr, and the Navy always put me in the middle.
You know, the landfill is just an enigma. We went from positive cash flows to a deficit almost overnight. If we really want an audit somewhere, the landfill is probably where I would start. I will tell you, I've looked through some of those documents, I've looked at some of those options, and we need to take a step back and find some serious solutions, because what they're doing right now with these $4 fees is just ridiculous. It's an additional tax for our Stafford County citizens under the guise of, use fees. In addition to that, the way they're doing it is completely and totally inefficient and frustrating to our Stafford County citizens. They're asking them to go to one side of the landfill, pay their fee, drive back around, go to the other side of the landfill so they can drop off their trash. That whole situation really needs to have an efficiency study, and it truly needs to have an audit.
Thank you, Wendy. Bob?
David, I'm not in favor of the landfill fees at all. We started that thing without fees. It was the greatest thing that ever happened in rural areas. We had refrigerators, mattresses, washing machine, everything thrown on the sides of the road in Stafford. We opened that landfill up, and it disappeared within 2 months. And I'm like Wendy. I think sometimes it's a tax on people that it shouldn't be. So I'm in favor of no more fees for the landfill, and look at a better business situation of how to run the landfill. Maybe we got to do like Fairfax or other people. Maybe we have to transport it to a different facility and burn it or dispose of it. Maybe it's cheaper to do that than operating a different cell. But I'm like, Paul, you got to get a good team in here and analyze what happened. And I'm like Wendy. When I went off the board, we had a lot of surplus in there, and come back now and we don't have anything. So I don't know if it's just part of the way that the EPA is making us run a cell. I'm not qualified to do that, but I do know that maybe there's different alternatives than just operating a landfill. But I'm in favor of doing away with the fee. I said that 6 months ago. I'll say it today. It's not fair on the people.
Thank you, Bob. And Wendy, you get your wish. You get to go first for the last question.
Okay.
And that one has to do with the with jobs in Stafford County, jobs that are more professional, administrative in character. We have 40,000 jobs.
40,000, we just hit a new mark.
What would you do as a supervisor, and this is the question I'm asking to all three of you, what would you do as a supervisor to promote that kind of economic growth?
Well, I'm excited to be on the Economic Development Authority, and I'm excited that we have just hit a new mark of 40,000 jobs in Stafford County. Most of that growth was in the professional services. We do have the Quantico Marine Corps base, and with BRAC, we were the recipient of 3,500 new contractor positions. However, recent changes within the Marine Corps procurement policy has had somewhat of a devastating effect on Stafford County. For example, they changed, it's this thing called the engineering order, and what they did was shipped a lot of our engineering jobs out to Dahlgren and down south to Charleston. In addition to that, they did this insourcing hiring freeze thing, and then started the cancellation of the CIOS contract. So from a professional jobs perspective, our biggest contributor is the base, and we need to continue to work with the base and encourage them to bring those jobs back. I know that there is some plans in the works. They've noticed, one of the commitments they made was if those jobs were going to be contracted out in those facilities that they sent them to, that they would bring them back to Stafford County. I think we need to hold them to their word on that and continue to massage those relationships. But not only the base, but we're also expanding some of our other professional services jobs, such as attorney, medical practitioners. We have a hospital that's growing, and a growing medical services practice here in Stafford County. And, the future looks bright in Stafford, and I'm incredibly proud of the 8 years that I spent on the Economic Development Authority, and I'm incredibly proud of the growth that we have experienced, because once again, those businesses that come to Stafford County bring far more tax revenue than they utilize in services. And if we are ever going to hold the line on our taxes on our homeowners, economic development is one of the keys.
Thank you, Wendy. Bob?
Well, going along with it, I'm shocked to see about almost 20% vacancy in office space in North Stafford. And what concerns me now is we have the business park, we have the airport, and we have Centerport. And all three operators are trying to build homes there rather than businesses there, and that shocks the devil out of me. Now, the DOD moved the Army Cyber Command from Belvoir to Fort Gordon. That was about 4,000 or 5,000 jobs. Wendy's right on the base. They moved most of that stuff down to Charleston. We're trying to get something back. I contacted Senator Kane's office in the last 2 days here now. We've gone in for 2 more buildings at Quantico, so we're moving a lot more jobs back in, and I'm part of that process. So what we need is professional jobs to move in, and we need to get them now, and we've got to come up with a game plan to get the bio and the cyber in. Cyber is right next door at Quantico. It's the internet law enforcement capital of the world is at Quantico. You've got FBI, DEA, all of the intelligence agencies. The Marine Corps runs this national network out of there. We got the security guard. Everything that we need for building an economic future is right at Quantico. It's right at our doorstep, and we got to take advantage of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibbons. Mr. Waldowski, you get the last word on the questions.
Well, it's interesting to read the published statement that we now have 2,400 businesses and at least 40,000 jobs in Stafford. But I always question analytically what is the breakdown of the jobs. I do know that the Air Force did move to Quantico, part of the OSI stuff. I'm not up to speed on what other military aspects because I'm not in that community anymore. But I did raise my concerns earlier today that sequestration is a key concern, and it's obviously a key concern to Senator Lynch. It's going to, this next continuous resolution that's could happen on October 1st is going to be a big part of our economic basis because many of us work in the DC corridor, not just at Quantico. When I moved here in 1990, I was stationed in the Pentagon. It was affordable housing. We now have the millennials, and unless we get them those type of jobs, they're not going to live in Stafford. The housing is just too expensive. I did read recently that a chief of staffer, a millennial, 24 years old, just became chief of staff for one of our congressmen. She's one of the few, probably the proud, probably Marie. Thanks.
That ends our questioning part for the debate. We'll take a quick break and end with our closing statement. So stay with us.